Welcome to the Settlement Strategy Playbook, brought to you by JPAR Real Estate and produced by HousingWire. I'm Tracey Velt, host of the RealTrending podcast, and your guide through this 4-part series on the post-settlement world of real estate. Each week this month, we'll explore and discuss fiduciary responsibilities, the intent behind the settlement and the DOJ's involvement, crafting a seller consultation, and finally, strategies for building an effective buyer consultation. Today, I'm speaking with Laura O'Connor, COO of JPAR Real Estate, and we're exploring the intent behind the settlement and the DOJ's involvement. We're also discussing JPAR's rollout of the settlement and the new policies and procedures, as well as discussing their forms and the opportunities that Laura is seeing in the real estate industry today. So enjoy the episode. Laura, welcome to the RealTrending podcast.
Well, hi, Tracey. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, I just want you to start by telling our audience a little bit about your position and what you do with JPAR.
Yeah, thanks. Well, as of February this year, I was recently promoted to the Chief Operating Officer role, overseeing operations for both our Texas brokerage, encompassing around 1,500 agents across the state of Texas, and the franchise or affiliated network outside of Texas, which is about another 1,500 agents in just over 30 states. So I've been leading the charge on the franchise side for a good, coming up on 3 years now. And that's been a really fun and exciting experience, but getting to dive deeper into the operational side aligns with my background. And it's felt really good, and especially with what we're going through now, to be able to bring my experience to help support the August 17th changes and working more closely with the agent level on the brokerage side.
Yeah, so you're slightly busy right now. So we have heard, yeah, and there has been, leading up to August 17th, there was just so much confusion and so many different things you're hearing out there. And so the data's come and gone and things have changed. So first of all, in your experience, what should real estate professionals understand about the settlement today?
Well, I think where I usually start is reminding them that this is a starting line, not a finish line, right? August 17th was the beginning of what will be a marathon. And within that marathon, there will be lots of opportunities for agents to rise to the top, to find new ways to really show up for the consumer and stand out because of that. So it's going to continue to evolve. There's some very basic and simple things that are part of the settlement, which isn't approved yet, right? The approval date comes in November. So this is our first attempt to make sure that we're honoring the intent of that settlement. And the DOJ and watchdog groups and the consumers will be watching to see how we as an industry show up. And that's what we're focused on, is day by day, how do we continue to evolve and stay nimble? We're very fortunate. JPAR is built on a foundation of remaining nimble. And so I think that's really aided us as we navigate through this unique time.
Yeah, you have to be right now. And from the field, I know it hasn't been very long, but you interact with agents every single day. So tell me what you're hearing out there, what some of their challenges are. Is it easier than they expected? Talk to me a little bit about what you're seeing so far.
I am seeing and hearing really positive feedback from our agents in the field. So for those, especially in Texas, they've always had a buyer form that was required to be signed. We know that in practice, a lot of agents would run out and get that signed right before they made an offer on a home. But the great agents had always used that as an opportunity to articulate their value, to outline what their services are, what that consumer is getting for those. They had never taken it for granted that there would be funds available waiting for them when that buyer made an offer, because in their mind, they might find a house that's off market that didn't have any sort of offered compensation. They may have a fee structure that was higher than what that seller was offering through the cooperative compensation that used to exist. And so they'd been doing this already in the past. And for most of them, they see this as another way to add and articulate their value. They are approaching the buyer agency consultation and saying, hey, not only am I going to help you identify the right home and negotiate the best offer price, but let's see what I can do to go to bat to get my compensation covered as part of the seller concessions, that we're requesting. And so they're really viewing this as an opportunity for the best agents, the cream, to rise to the top. And they're taking it one step further, which I'm really excited about. We have agents who have went on local news stations. They're countering some of the broader outlets that might not quite get it right by really getting local and talking with local chambers and going on radio shows and rolling out podcasts and diving deep into the different programs that are out there to help buyers achieve the dream of home ownership. So I'm really excited and I'm really proud to see what our agents are doing.
Yeah, I mean, not only are their buyer conversations different, but their seller conversations are different as well. So that's all changing
absolutely.
Too. Yeah. So JPAR has always been heavily focused on consumer and agent, being a consumer and agent centric company. So you've taken a very consumer centric approach to the new policies and procedures. So tell me a little bit about that.
So the agent is our partner. They will always be our primary stakeholder and the person that we have to vet every decision against. And we pull them in. We have agent advisory groups and ambassadors at each office location that we can pull into to make sure that we have our finger on the pulse. But in the environment we're in today, the best way that we can support our agents is to ensure that the consumer is properly educated as to the way real estate was done for 100 years. What changed and why? What are their options? What can they negotiate on? What is agency? What is the agent required to do? And we took the heavy lifting on this and said, let's make sure 1,500 agents. We've been doing 3 trainings a week since, probably March to try to make sure that we have the opportunity to touch every agent. But if somebody somehow missed one of those trainings or maybe didn't get it the first time, which we all know adult learners, it can take 2 or 3 times for all of us. Me these days, I think maybe 5 or 6 times before something's really sinking in. And so we developed consumer education forms of both a buyer and a seller consumer education and acknowledgement form and made that a required piece of our form stack for our agents. And our training walks them through sending that form in advance of needing to do a buyer agency presentation or a listing presentation. We want the consumer to have time to read, understand, digest, ask questions about agency and compensation well before they're asked to sit down and fill out a bunch of forms that have a whole bunch more legalese. They're really big and they're complex, and it takes our agents a long time to learn how to properly articulate what is in those. We want to ensure that the consumer, if they aren't investing the time to read through those forms or, maybe even having an attorney review of those forms, that we've laid it out for them in layman's terms in advance so they're very clear on what their options are. That not only helps the consumer come to those listing appointments or the buyer agency appointments prepared, but it helps our agent avoid any unnecessary liability or risk in maybe articulating the changes incorrectly.
Yeah, definitely. And did you build your own forms, or are you using the association forms? Or
we, to my knowledge, we don't have a strictly buyer or seller education form available through the different MLSs that we work through. So yes, we built those ourselves. We sent them out for attorney review. We just recently got those out to our affiliated owners across the nation. Looking forward to hearing back from them. The beauty is that it's something that we can evolve and tweak as we get feedback from, again, the boots on the ground, working with consumers. if we're hearing from buyers or sellers that they're confused about a certain piece of that, then it's something that we can quickly and easily update and roll out to all of our agents and owners across the nation. So we took ownership of that. We are making it publicly available. We host an independent owners mastermind group with owners across the nation who don't have the benefit of already affiliating with the larger brand, or maybe they're not part of a big nationwide brokerage. And so we want to make sure that we are using this opportunity to give back to the industry. We all need to come together and rise up, right, together. So we are sharing these resources as we develop them and saying, hey, if it works for you, use it. If it doesn't work for you, there's nobody forcing you to, but we want to make sure you have access.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think a big source of confusion is kind of that agency. For different states, they all have different rules. They're not all buyer representation agreements. Some of them are, just buyer consultation agreements and it can get confusing to buyers, especially when they have to sign multiple documents and it's just confusing in general. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there was that adage, it was KISS, that I learned way back in maybe junior high, where it was like, keep it simple, stupid. So we're really trying to boil things down to just the highest level of what the consumer needs to know about what was agency, how was it structured for the last 100 years, what has changed. And that should be something that is universally applicable across any MLS, any state, any buyer or seller discussion.
Yeah, that's so smart. Obviously the DOJ has stepped in several times, including to comment about the California Association of Realtors forms, which they've since changed. But what what in your opinion is the intent of the DOJ as it relates to uncoupling commissions, to kind of lay that out for agents listening?
Yeah, you've said it, right? They have been very clear, and even in follow-up letters from the NAR president to all NAR members, they have laid out very specifically that the DOJ's intent is to see that commissions are decoupled. What that means is that they don't want to see sellers' agents paying buyers' agents. A seller can offer a concession as part of the offer process and say, hey, if your buyer is cash strapped and needs to have some additional funds to get this deal closed, bring us those offers. And it doesn't mean that offer is going to be less attractive to a seller. A seller is looking at a net sheet. A seller could have an investment buyer that comes with an offer that is $20,000 under asking price with no concessions. And they could have a first-time home buyer coming in with a full price or maybe even slightly over asking price offer with $10,000 in concessions. And it works out that the first-time home buyer offer is the one that's more attractive. So, seller concessions are not new. Seller concessions have been there for helping to cover the cost of repairs, to help with closing costs, any number of things. It's just going to be an expansion and a change in the way that we educate our sellers as to your upfront costs that you're signing in this listing agreement may seem less. Be prepared for offers from buyers that have higher requests for seller concessions, which will impact your net. But at the end of the day, you're just comparing, what is my goal in the sale of this home, this asset? What am I hoping to realize from that? And which of the offers that I'm receiving are going to help me get closest to that goal? It really isn't difficult. It's just a change, and change can feel uncomfortable, and it can take a little while for people to get used to. But our fiduciary responsibility is always to our client in real estate. So when you're signing a listing agreement, you have fiduciary responsibility to that seller to ensure that they are maximizing their profits on the sale of their home. And that's what you need to be thinking about first, is that agency relationship, not thinking about how the buyer is going to afford the costs of purchasing the home, right? That is guessing at the agreement signed between a buyer and their agent as to what they have outlined for their fees versus waiting to see what they ask for when they bring that purchase offer.
Yeah. Are you seeing kind of an explosion in seller concessions since the August 17th date?
Not yet. I think that where the compensation and sharing of compensation existed in listing agreement forms, we've seen obviously all of our existing listings coming back and getting those addendums written in and put in place. But it's going to take a little while before we start to see this trickle through into the actual offers and the different ways that we are negotiating and handling compensation.
Okay. So with your firm, how are you, what are some of the best practices that you're following to ensure compliance?
So best practice, it goes back to those forms. We have a new buyer education and acknowledgement form and a seller education and acknowledgement form that are required. We are rolling out actually starting September 4th. It's going to take us about 60 days to fully roll out because we're hand-holding the process to ensure everybody can get the new app installed and working and functioning for them. But through that, we have guided buyer agency, seller agency courses that not only helps educate the agent and how to articulate and communicate these things well for their customer. It's giving them the exact scripts that they can use. It's linking them to the NAR FAQ in case they need to re-educate themselves or update themselves on what those changes are and why they're in place. And so really taking a very tactile, down to the individual transaction or agent level. It's a lot of heavy lifting, but it's so important. It's the only way that we can ensure that we as a 3,000 agent organization are really stepping up and embracing this new normal, honoring the intent, and helping our agents be at the forefront of change because we know that's where, frankly, market share exists. It is when you are a market leader that you're able to step first into the new normal and find your opportunities. And that's where we want to position all of our agents to be.
Yeah. Do you sense like a renewed energy with agents? I mean, I know change is tough, but, you know, it seems to me like once that initial shock wore off even before August 17th, that then it becomes kind of like an energized mode where they, you know, are practicing new things and learning new things and really expanding their knowledge. So, you know, especially veteran agents who might have skipped education classes and now are going to them. What are you seeing with your agent base?
Yeah, I mean, it's super exciting. And I think that the brands and brokerages that have used this as an opportunity to bring agents back together, we sort of got separated during COVID. And so it's been a slow march to bring people back into the office or back into these different group settings. And it's been really exciting. We've been having quarterly connects and different in-person meetings, our ambassadors bringing people in. And it's exactly what you said. We have our top producers that are coming back in and they're sharing insights and ideas and at the same time gathering great ideas from some brand new agents. We had an agent at a mastermind session we did, open to other agents down in McAllen, Texas recently. And she said, I work predominantly with first-time home buyers. This is not difficult. They come to me saying, how do I compensate you? They have never bought or sold a home before. They don't know that there was ever a normal where a seller was offering compensation to pay for their representative to get the service that they're delivering to them as a buyer. And so, you know, it was this sort of aha moment you saw in a few of the veteran agents where they were like, oh, right, there are people who don't have any perceived normal. And so it's been really fun to watch that idea exchange and the way that regardless of years in the industry, they're learning from each other. So it's been really motivating and inspiring. And I'll just say 20 plus years in this industry, I have had plenty of opportunities to do consulting work and other things with people outside of the industry. There are nobody that is more resilient than a real estate agent. I mean, talk about positive, entrepreneurial, can-do spirit. This group, our industry, these agents, they know how to roll with the punches. They get up, they shake it off, and they march forward. They have always been there to support buyers and sellers. That's why they got into the business, right? Most of them, Aunt Annie or somebody had a really bad experience and they said, man, I'm going to go and I'm going to do it better. And that's what they've been doing. They've always shown up. They're going to continue to show up. They're not going to be laying down in the street crying and waiting for things to change. They're already dusted off, marching forward, and doing what they do.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to my next question, because I feel like the firms and the agents that go into this with a kind of a mindset of opportunity are going to be the most successful with it. Where do you see the most opportunities, ahead with all the changes and just in real estate in general?
It's absolutely got to be in education. I've been using a phrase recently, which is show up, don't show off. And I'm not saying that it's not valuable to say, oh my gosh, we're guilty, right? For many years, we were, the new kid on the block, the fastest growing, the number one across Texas. We had all these great claims to fame that were production based. We're still very proud of the fact that we have a high per person productivity and all of those sort of metrics about sales. But to me, those are all showing off when we're promoting that to the outside consumer. So instead, think about how you show up. And showing up is involving yourself in the community, involving yourself in local or even national level efforts for legislation that will help increase homeownership rates, looking at our diversity segments that are not able to achieve homeownership at the same rates as some of their counterparts in our society, and figuring out the ways that you can inform them about special programs that might be available within your market. The agents who educate themselves on their local level opportunities and really clearly define who the customer is that they want to serve and work with, how they relate to them, the information that they have that's unique that will help that particular, whether it's an investor, a move-up buyer, a downsize, there's somebody that's first time, a veteran. There's all these incredible categories of people who are either looking to buy homes or to capitalize on the investment that is in their home and the wealth that they can generate through that for generations. We need to get better as an industry and investing a good portion of our marketing dollars into those consumer education pieces. I think we all saw I think it was 101 ways that a realtor can help you thing, the graphic that came out from realtor.com. We should have had that a decade ago, right? I mean, we have always been doing these things. We just finally decided to start talking about the ways that we show up for the consumer. That's really where the best opportunity is going to lie as we move forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, there's this renewed focus on consumer education that I think is really important. And I think it will also level up the profile of real estate professionals in general, which was always very confusing to me that the reputation was, what it was, because they are working with people who are buying a very substantial, property or financial transactions. So definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. I have, with my parents, my husband and I have bought and sold homes in 5 states, and we have used a variety of different agents. When I was licensed, I let my license go and focused on the leadership side a while ago, so to never be in conflict with our agents. But I never represented myself. I never represented my parents. I always went out and found somebody that was the local market expert for the area that we were living into. And I think if you want to understand the value of an agent, talk to any agent that has left the business or has left the industry or has let their license go. Those are the first people who will show up and say, I need an agent to represent me, because they know how it can help with negotiating a lower price, getting extras included. I see our agents and how they go to bat in their negotiating skills. And it's really impressive. And it's something we just don't spend enough time focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my final question is just what are, last thoughts, with all the changes, what are your expectations? What are your hopes, moving forward?
My expectations are pretty simple. It's that we will continue to follow not just the bare minimum of the guidelines, but seeing how we can lean in and really honor the full intent of what NAR has tried to structure. That is, as a reminder to everybody, they did that to protect their members from future liability, other frivolous lawsuits, other things that might pop up, right? So this is our opportunity to show up both for our industry and for the consumers that we serve. And I think it's going to be a really exciting time when we see the best agents, the ones who have always been there, head down, super focused, plugging away, really rising to the top and getting the recognition that they deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining the Real Trending podcast. It has been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Tracey, I always enjoy it when I get time to sit down with you. So thank you for having me.
Sure.